Welcome to Poets Speak, Conversations with the Poet Laureate of Vermont. My name is Chard deNiord. My first guest this week, our inaugural guest, is Verandah Porche. And she's here today to talk about her career and her present projects. I'd like to first give a little introduction here of Verandah. Her life and work have intertwined inextricably since her earliest days at Packer's Corner, the communal farm she moved to in Vermont in 1968, Guilford, Vermont. As a mother, wife, poet, teacher, and activist for the past 50 years, Verandah has, in the words of Robert Frost, worked tirelessly to make her vocation and avocation one, as two eyes make one in sight. The author of 3 books of poetry, The Body Symmetry, published in 1975 by Harper & Row, Glancing Off, published by See-Through Books in 1986, and Sudden Eden, published 2 years ago by Verdant Books, Verandah has, to her credit, shunned the mercurial world of poetry biz most of her career, choosing instead to write like Emily Dickinson in the freedom of her own study, like a mustard seed planted deeply in the soil of her community, by which I mean not only Packer's Corner, but the towns and villages of southern Vermont, and several communities also in northern Vermont. Verandah has developed into a true original. But we in Vermont who know her work and are lucky enough to hear it at events like this one on this show today should not keep her a secret. Her new book, Sudden Eden, her latest book, contains memorable poems that range from domestic mysticism to wise Georgics to heartbreaking elegies to essential witnessing to the most pressing concerns and events of our day. In addition to her own 2 books of poetry, 3 books, Verandah has also edited several volumes of poetry and personal histories, including Ordinary Mystery, Infusion, Musings from the Oncology Clinic in Springfield, Vermont, and Broad Book Anthology, A Play of Voices, a collection of personal narratives that honor the lives of elders in Guilford, Vermont. She has worked tirelessly throughout southern Vermont as a visiting poet in schools, literacy and crisis centers, hospitals, factories, nursing homes, senior citizens, a 200-year-old Vermont tavern, and an urban class neighborhood. The Vermont Arts Council presented Verandah with its Award of Merit in 1998, and in 2012, Marlborough College honored her with an honorary degree of Humane Letters. So it's a great privilege and honor to welcome Verandah Porche this afternoon. Verandah, I think I'd love to start talking about what you're doing most recently and how you might tie it into your long and wonderful career of both writing and serving the community in a literary way, as well as in just a vitally social way as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, so my most recent personal triumph was running for the Guilford Select Board, and I won in, a small town landslide, Guilford, Vermont, a town of 2,000. And it was the same mean-spiritedness and civic danger, not so much domestically, but nationally and internationally, that made me run for the select board. The same fell spirit that brought me to Guilford, Vermont in 1968. I felt that I needed to make a contribution to what in Vermont is called neighborliness. And neighborliness is kind of a spiritual practice, down-home spiritual practice. The thing that we would hear that even people who didn't like each other would band together and pitch hay for a farmer who was suddenly hospitalized, or the Grange itself would band together and just honor people who stood out in their area in an unpretentious but connected way. And certainly my politics is, the expression is different from how it would be when I was young. I've had a lifetime of experience of listening to people.
What's so fascinating about this creative and collaborative group that got together at Packers Corners in 1968 originally was that you started so locally, but you really had sort of national. Not that you had national ambitions, but you were thinking nationally as well as locally. You were involved in both local and national politics.
Well, we were all coming from political activism, and it was the fracturing of alliances that really brought us there. I mean, most people, especially women, have to multitask and splice their curiosities and their possibilities with, just necessity. And poetry is good because 15 minutes can be a really authentic amount of time to jot down what's been vibrating in the brain, for all of the other have-tos. Also, I didn't just work in Vermont, I worked all over New England, really. Some of the most important work that I did was outside of the state, and battled me with my carbon footprint, in the car. I could write in the car, sort of sideways, or I actually started writing songs in the car, making up songs in the car because it was a lot safer. That I didn't have to pull over. I mean, they were sort of tune-free songs. They did have a rudimentary tune, but it was definitely oral tradition. And also, in great pain in my own life, delving into other people's lives was such a gift. And being a writing partner to others came about more or less by accident. I mean, as a poet in residence in the schools, I was often just writing down words for people who, youngsters who hadn't yet learned to write, or bad girls and boys who would sit there like this and refuse to write things down, and I would just say, you talk, I'll take it down. And then just briefly, I was invited to work at a nursing home, and by someone who was the parent of one of the school poets that I had taught. And so there I was in front of all these wily old ladies, and we talked about the prompt. They all had TV trays with pencils and paper, and the prompt was going to be kitchen smells. They had chosen that. And then it was time for them to write, and they all crossed their arms and closed their mouths, and then just said, oh no, we have shaky hands, and we have nothing to say. And it was one of those expletive deleted moments for the starving artist where you have to make a living. And so, some woman who looked as if she had been in a coma, Hazel Amadon, said, talked about her grandmother, her mother, I can't remember, scrubbing her floor with lye. And she said she didn't have much to do with, but she did with what she had. And that was just the beginning of my pursuit of vernacular.
Great, that's wonderful. And you've also raised a family.
Oh yeah, I have. I have.
Along with all this.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is what people do, Chard. I mean, you had to do it too. It's just, Because I was living on the farm, I had less economic emergency than most people did. It was, in those days especially, cheap to live there. We figured in the olden days, when we wrote Home Comfort, it took $10,000 a year to turn over the whole farm with maybe 10 or 12 people on it.
Now, there's a wonderful story about why you called it Total Loss Farm.
Well, it was just, I think Ray Mungo saw it on a tax farm, tax form, right. And he said, hey, look at this. It says Total Loss Farm. And I think Buddhism, budget Buddhism, was sort of sweeping the farm. Everybody was having a macrobiotic phase that ended with a tomato, or a pork chop. And we thought, oh, Total Loss Farm, isn't that so great? And so I still like that name.
Yeah. Well, Veranda, I wonder if you could read a poem.
Yeah, I can read anything you like.
How about Prima Gravida?
Oh, okay. What page is that on?
That's 76.
Page, 76, okay.
Which gets at this a little bit.
Okay, well, this is a sort of grim poem. It's actually, it's a ghazal. It's
people may not know what a
ghazal is.
ghazal
A ghazal is a Persian form of poetry, originally oral tradition.
Right.
So when the poet would speak the first few lines of the poem, everybody would know sort of what the rhyme pattern was going to be and what the refrain was going to be. In this poem, it was bellies, and there was a rhyme word, water, matter, taughter, predator.
And you have to put your name in the last line.
Oh, yes. I mean, you don't have to do it. People write things that they call ghazals, but since this was my first ghazal, I thought, okay, so here we go. So you pronounce this Prima Gravida or Gravida?
I was wondering how you pronounced it.
Well, I pronounced it Gravida, but I had never heard it spoken aloud. And interestingly, this is it's a poem I rarely read aloud, just because you have to listen so carefully.
Okay.
Wet a goblet, rub the rim, imperfection sings. Run the faucet until water bellies. Professor X praised surface tension years ago as I dozed, missing how matter bellies. 9th month, we wait, oafs on a sofa, loaves and fishes in our taughter bellies. I skim the geographic. Wallaby stashes Joey in a pouch to flee from predator bellies. Glossy poses, rage bulges from baggy camouflage. Behold, child soldier bellies. Grin and spar, reenactors mock make war. Who volunteers for pietà? Gold star bellies. Wind lends drama, drapery for agony and bliss. Wind groans or coos to mother martyr bellies. Perfection song. Your turn to be round, ring true, veranda. The tongue in this bell never lies.
Very nice.
Really, I think some of us come forward with a surplus of language, a sort of surge.
Yeah.
And once we learn how to talk, even if we're not talkative people, we still experience that surplus of language. And I became fascinated with spelling and spells and anagrams.
Right.
Mostly during difficult times when I was relying, let's say, on somebody else's medical expertise to care for my loved ones. And so I would look at language and think about transforming one word into another. Like my daughter Emily and I play a game, a kind of free-range Scrabble, sort of based on bananagram rules. But, you know, we have about 3 Scrabble sets and anagrams. And so we just make it one of Marty Jaser's grandson, who he didn't live long enough to meet, called it Road of Words. And so you could see on our coffee table the road of words made by linking letters. And so I discovered all these amazing anagrams like stream and master, and pearly and player. And so I love that. But it was when I needed a brain surgeon for my daughter, or an oncologist for her, that I would just delve down into these hermetic activities, hoping that if I worked really hard, they would work really hard.
Right.
And later, when Richard, my husband, got sick and the world just fractured, you know, I realized something that felt so cosmic, that the word widow had the word I do embedded in it. And that just felt so, it was like a one-word poem koan to me. Both tearing and uniting, you know, at the same time. And so it's interesting because those are poems that you can't really read aloud, you know, because they're I poems.
Right.
And so I don't know those poems very well. Like a lot of the poems that I write, I read them over so many times while I'm writing them that they're fluent. But these are the opposite. These are sort of fracture poems, surgery poems.
Yeah. Fascinating. And broken.
Broken. Yeah. And what can we say? You know, as we age, the broken world is so, you know, sticks and stones that we got.
You know, Theodore Retke, the great poet, once wrote, "I'll make a broken music or I'll die."
He should have said "and."
And die, right.
Which one would you like?
Well, there's Farewell.
This is a poem about our goat destroying our old library.
Oh, great.
You know, we had, I mean, that's just the backstory here.
Right.
And Nana goes dada, Total Loss Farm. Here on Easy Street, I can compost the past. Watch Una's 3 pet pygmy goats ransack the 60s, mildewed college texts, and the spidery library that housed them. The goats, they're so damn cute, dashing eyes, prim grins, and party shoes. Their horns storm the high shelves, and shucked selves tumble. An avalanche of language litters the broadloom, and the goats consume. I bend among burdocks to brush and flatten page scraps. The age of Jackson blows into easy blues guitar. Gormenghast seeks deliverance. Quote, he was infatuated with all that pertained to love. He trod breast deep through banks of thorn-crazed roses, unquote. Peak gushes, Dickey cleans his clock. Beethoven's clavier sonata, clefts and rests, is too far gone to play. Wind harps on chicken wire. A tale of 2 cities tatters. It is a far, far better patch of tar paper tacked to a scroll of polyethylene. The new golden bough waves its muddy, mythic leaves, and the sun also rises on general chemistry. Justify from your own experience the hypothesis that the vapor pressure of mercury is less than that of water under the bridge. We mince words when the goats, sated with print, tear my daffodils' frilled throats. Magnetic morning slips from the fridge. I lure them back with stoned wheat thins. O spring, during the white truce of bloodroot, nothing is meant to sting.
Wonderful.
The white truce of bloodroot. Wow, yeah. That's not bad.
So you haven't read this one in a while?
No, not in a while.
Did anything
jump out,
seem new to you?
Well, I just wanted to share a tiny little piece. One of the things I love doing is writing other people down. Mm-hmm. And so I did this big project at Real Artways in Hartford, Connecticut. And they just sent me out with my laptop to explore the neighborhood. And one of the places that I stopped was called Precision Dental. And the owner of Precision Dental described making false teeth. And I just love this. So I'm going to take some of my time with my questioning him to the extent that this was his soliloquy, and it never would have existed if the passionate scribe hadn't been there, but it was all his language. This is an excerpt. We make little sculptures that fit in the mouth. It's tough compared to a lot of other fields. Making pizza, the customer could eat it and go away. Here, they've had a dental or partial for over 20 years and they're still wearing the same thing. If you're in this business, your eyes go to people's mouths. You notice how their teeth are formed. If I see someone on the street and I like their teeth, I'll be setting up teeth like theirs for a week until I get over it. As a technician, you can emulate a smile. We're imitating life, which is hard, to imitate something natural, always trying to make it so you can't tell. By trying to be a perfectionist, you have to make things not perfect, if you can follow that, and comfortable as an old pair of shoes. You're making the product nobody wants to see and nobody wants to claim they own. We're like ghostwriters of the mouth.
My gosh.
Isn't that fabulous?
So this is what he said? He wrote,
I didn't do anything to it. I was sitting there with my laptop and it was mainly like what I offered him was my fascination and my patience.
So you were just transcribing?
I was transcribing, and I was telling him to slow down, and also I was asking him questions, the sort of tell me more questions, and then I just cut my voice out.
And this was all just no revision? This is
excerpted from something huge, but then I went back to him. Because that's my ethical responsibility. I went back to him and I said, this is what I want to use. Tell me what you think.
So you, for years, you've been doing this for decades,
with all kinds of people,
but the wealth of anonymous language.
The wealth, I mean, to me, it just goes to show that the great unheard has as much or sometimes more to offer than people who set out to share their vision with great intention. You know, just the fixer, as they called him at Door Woolen Mill, who had heart surgery, and he was comparing his heart surgery to fixing the spinning machine. And you know, he had the genius to be able to make an alarm clock wind backwards when he was 8 years old, you know, and so, you know, that's my other passion. It's not just cleaning my own heart. It's just going out and hearing the beat of somebody else's and transcribing that.
Oh, wonderful. But it's taken a selfless motivation in many ways.
No, it's greedy.
It's greedy because you enjoy the language.
It's greedy because I'm getting to live in so many other people's deep realities, and those realities would be unrevealed if I hadn't been there. You know, I jokingly called it part rabbi, part raptor.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
But
Well,
anyway.
we are coming to an end. I wonder if you could read farewell.
Oh, okay.
And then, but before you do, let me just mention a few things that you're going to be doing here.
Oh,
in
yeah.
the upcoming-
Yeah, one of my big loves is writing songs. And
Right.
so
You're gonna be
Patty Carpenter and I
Right.
have been writing songs together
Yes.
since Hurricane Katrina,
Yes.
intensely, and we're going to be doing a big benefit for Brattleboro, for Brooks Memorial Library on
Right.
May 5th.
7 o'clock.
May 5th at 7 o'clock. So
right.
it's a way to support the
Yeah.
library and hear
Yeah.
a whole raft of poems and original songs that she and I collaboratively wrote.
Great.
Okay, I wrote this for the Vermont Citizens Campaign for Health, and it was part of testimony at the state legislature.
Right.
Song of the Uninsured. Uninsured, though able for the moment, my body and I roll into golden age. It's passing strange. The vehicle and home I shuttle from have coverage. Whack a fender, trip and fracture on my premises. Adjusters gauge the damage you endure and dole out a sum. Rest assured, I pay the premium. Listen, my body's coverage is skin. Thick or thin, my only coverage is skin. Calculate the odds I gamble on. My heart, a slot machine. My dice, the density of bone. The fear, a rhyme for answer. The care I may postpone. Risk is a lien on all I own or owe. Luck is my doctor. Touch and go.
Thank you, Veranda.
Thank you, Chard.